it's me. So I got this, and I'm not really subscribed to OwlCrate anymore, but I really wanted the book that's in here, so I got this crate. And I have room for exactly one YA book without me having no room for the YA books. So I wanted that one space to go to this book. So what I was going to try to do in this video, and we'll see if it works, I was going to try to open this and talk about what I'm working on at the same time. So let's try to do that. Oh my gosh, this is so hard to open. So the theme is Against All Odds. This is our spoiler card. So we will look at that when we're done going through everything. I think it's going to be really hard for me to go through this and talk about my book at the same time, but I'm going to try. All right, so as I mentioned in my last video, I'm currently working on two projects. I'm drafting the project and I'm editing the project. So I'm going to talk about the project I am drafting first because it's a slightly shorter story and more mainstream. And I have notes somewhere. Are these my notes? Okay, so the first project I'm working on, the working title is basically just the main character's name. So her name is Ari, and it's A-R-I-E. And this is a, I don't know what to call it. I don't remember what I said in my last video. I had been calling it like a dark romance because that was like the main thread that I had like finalized or clear. Anyway, it was the only like clear thread that I had when I started the story. But I'm currently about halfway through, I think. I have a very long outline. So I finished my outline in basically about 3 bursts of inspiration, like over, I want to say about 2 weeks. And I just got to like the last couple of scenes in like my first burst of inspiration. And then my second burst of inspiration, I almost finished the outline, but I got too tired and I had to stop and get some sleep. And so I finished it last night as of the filming of this video. So I am very excited about this story. It is definitely horror. It's definitely weird horror. And there's like a romance element to it. So it's been a lot of fun to like figure out like what's going on in the story and like figure out how I'm gonna get to the end. Because basically I got this idea, I want to say January, and like sometime at the end of January last year. And like normally I would let an idea sit for a while before I just jump right into working on it, but this one I was just like really excited and I needed that to get like myself back into writing regularly again. And so I worked on it for, I want to say like 2 weeks. Technically, I considered myself to be working on it for the entire month of March. So I just started working on it like sometime in March, like beginning of March into February, something like that. So I only had the idea for like a month. And I got all my characters situated and I drew a couple of maps of like what some different places in the book look like. And I just started writing it. I was just fancying it and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was having a lot of fun figuring it out. And so I think it was literally about a month ago when I had written all I could write without knowing where all these different threads are going. So let me back up a little bit. So I got the idea end of January, started working on it basically March of last year. And then I didn't do anything for a few months. And then I got to the summertime and I'm like, I think I need to change like something in the backstory because the character, I loved her personality, but there was something off like with the motivation because like when I got the idea, the only thing I could see clearly was the very end, this vague part in the middle and the beginning. And that's only when I started like brainstorming and thinking about where the story should start. And so I had like basically these very brief snapshots with like no clue how I'm going to get to the end. And I'm like, okay, how do I get her from where she is at the beginning of the story to like where she is at the end of the story? And I put the story aside and I picked up the book that I'm now currently editing. And so I started working on that. And then when I finished that at the end of February, I picked Ari's story back up probably about a week later. I know I didn't wait that long, and so I was definitely working on it again, like by the very end of February, very beginning of March. And so that's where I'm at with that story right now. And I am about halfway done as of the film of this video, which is towards the end of May. So I'm about halfway done, I think. I have a lot of scenes left to write my outline. Like a lot of scenes. And because I wrote it as much as I could without knowing where these other plot threads are going. And then I set it aside to let myself brainstorm, give myself plenty of time to brainstorm because I didn't want to force anything. And then of course, as soon as I switched my focus to the editing project, the same thing happened last time. As soon as I switched my focus to the other project, I figured out what I needed to change in the background. And it was just like a little tweak, and then everything's fallen into place and really well. So as soon as I switch my focus to editing, I immediately like have this, I don't know, the muses have visited me hard, like this season right now. It's amazing. So, you know, I got kissed by the inspiration fairy, and I figured out where all these different plot threads are going. And so that's how I ended up working on both projects, because I felt like, you know, doing some drafting and then, you know. So I did like a block of notes, you know, of just like all these different characters. I'm like, this is where their story's going, this is where this story's going, this is where this story's going. And I could finally figure out how like some things could fall into place. But it wasn't until I had that second burst of outlining that I was like, oh my gosh, I know where the story is going. The story is actually going to go where I saw it going when I got the idea. It's amazing. So yeah, that's going really well. So let's open a couple of things and then talk about the other project. So the first thing I pulled out is this pen, and it says Treasured Tomes, inspired by We Hunt the Flame. Oh, pretty. I'm not super familiar with that book, but this is cute. Oh, based on We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. I have seen that book. Oh, this is so cute. It says Chapter 1, The Lost Magic of a Raya. And there's like a little bit of text. Wow, that is horribly, horribly cute. I really like things that open. So we will put this on one of my too many pin banners that I have right now. Next, we're going to open this transparent bookmark. Comes in this cute package. I don't know why I'm trying to get it out without tearing this, because I am going to throw this away. So let's just tear this to make my life easier. Oh, cute. Probably can't see these, but it's like stained glass. They're really cute. Yeah. Those are nice. I will add these to my bookmark collection. I will check the spoiler card to see where these are from. So these are from Daughter of the Moon Goddess, 6 Crimson Crames, and a magic steeped in poison. And so it features iconic characters who face the odds head on, along with elements from their stories. Okay. I'm not sure which one is which. I might can figure it out because I have 2 of these books. I have 6 Crimson Cranes and Daughter of the Moon Goddess. So next I'm going to pull this out. And I already saw this and I was looking for the bookmarks. This is inspired by The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. It is a bookmark tin, which I could use one of those. All these bookmarks I've gotten out of book boxes over the last few years. Sometimes only through a story can a truth be heard. That's cute. And the inside says, stories are both an escape from the truths of the world and the only way to see them clearly. This must be layered because this is oh my gosh. So that comes out and you can put some more bookmarks underneath this. because this is a little shallow. This is. So that's cute. All right, so let's talk about the project I'm editing. So that working title is Winter. It is supernatural horror. And just starting at the beginning, I don't know when I got this idea. I started outlining it and like taking notes and stuff for it in the fall of 2013. And that's just because I wanted to participate in NaNoWriMo and I didn't know which project I wanted to work on. And so I was outlining, I outlined 2 stories to completion. I think I did 3 stories to completion, but I don't remember finishing the outline for the other story. But I could just not remember because I ended up not writing the book. Or maybe it was when I was outlining it, I realized the story wasn't going to work and then I quit outlining it to like let it brainstorm some more. So anyway, I got this idea like settled, I want to say about September 2013. And so I was going to do another project for NaNoWriMo, but I got to October 31st and I was leaving a friend's house and it was late and it was dark and it was like cloudy and it was windy and like the atmosphere was just like perfect for paranormal, you know, and both the stories were paranormal. So I don't know what happened, but I was driving home and like the wind was blowing leaves across the road and it was such a vibe. And so I got home and I was like, I want to work on this other story. And so I switched projects, and which was fine because it was already outlined and everything, and I got to work. And for the first couple weeks, everything was fine. I was having a lot of fun and things were fine, but it's a supernatural horror, but there were like these weird like urban fantasy elements that were attached to this other character. And when I was plotting everything, it made perfect sense, okay? But once I got into the story and I got into the atmosphere of the story, those urban fantasy elements were clashing with the supernatural horror elements, and it started making me miserable really fast. So I won Nano, but I was just kind of like crawling to the finish line and I was like exhausted. And I won NaNoWriMo, and then I wrote, which was 50,000 words. And then I wrote another 10,000 words in December. And I was like done. I was like 100% done. And I had 7 chapters left to write, according to my outline, which changes, you know. But this was a hard written outline and it got really messy really fast. So I only type in my outlines now. But according to my outline, I was 7 chapters from the end. And I had a blogging friend at the time send me a message on Twitter basically telling me to stop. She sent me a message from this writer, from this traditionally published writer who walked away from a contract and walked away from money because there was a project that was making her miserable. And so I was kind of like, okay, if she can walk away from a contract, then surely I can walk away from this book nobody is waiting on. And I knew at the time that I was gonna have to rewrite it from scratch because I'm like, this is just a huge mess, just all the way through. It's a huge mess. And so the story kind of ends there for about a year. And sometime in the next year, I had a friend who she was asking me about how my writing was going, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a huge mess, like such a huge mess. And she was like, okay, well, send it to me and I'll read it. Well, I'm like, okay, the book 1 is not finished, and 2, it's really bad. So I just sent her like 5 chapters, and I was like, well, maybe you can help me like figure out like what is going wrong in this. And she's brilliant. She's like so good at like fixing problems in stories. So she reads the chapters that I sent her, and she comes back and she's like, okay, you absolutely cannot write the story this way. And I feel like to some people, like, that sounds like it's a little rude, but she was 100% right. You know, there are things that are going on in the story that is kind of like, if I'm not going to do it right, then I shouldn't do it at all, because I'm just making like a big nonsensical mess. And so I was like, you know, okay, I get it. Like I can see that if I don't write the story the way I originally got it, it's just like, I got the idea and I was like, oh, that sounds so dark. It's so twisted, so fun. And then I started writing it and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can like go there. It's like really gross. And so I kind of backed off and softened everything. And she was like, no, you cannot do that. And so I agreed that I cannot write the story that way. And so I decided, okay, fine. If I can't write the story correctly, then I'm just not going to write it at all. And so I set it aside, and then therein ends the story until 2019. So 5 years of this story being in the background, and she would just like randomly bring it up, and continue to randomly bring it up over the years, like up until I picked it back up again and started working on it this last time. So 2019, I'm struggling to write. This is when I was trying to recover from my severe burnout, and that I experienced in 2017 and again in 2018. And so like nothing was working. I don't remember if I talked about it or not, but I had a period of about 18 months where I switched projects almost every week. So I finished projects a minimum of 30 times in a year and a half. Like it's like the definition of crazy making. It was literally making me crazy. And so I decided to just do a rewrite for NaNoWriMo 2019. I hadn't participated in NaNoWriMo since 2014. And so with a different project, not this project. And so I was like, let me just do a rewrite. And so I go back to the story and I'm like, I'm just going to rewrite it from scratch based on what I remember, how the story was in my head, you know, like based on memory, rewriting it from scratch. So I start working on the story and it's going so well. And all these things that I was hung up on in 2013 and 2014, I was no longer hung up on. And it was so like atmospheric and it was so like dark and gross and fun. And then this character with the urban fantasy elements, all of that stuff started to come up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's not working. Like everything in the story just died. Like all the energy just died. And I'm like, I don't understand why this isn't working, you know? And if my brain had been functioning well, you know, I think I probably would have figured it out, but it was not functioning all that well. So I set the story aside and I was like, this is just not going to work. And in fact, I had given up on it to the point where I couldn't find my notes for it when I decided to work on it last summer. I literally folded my notes and taped them shut. And then I was using that notebook for something else. And so when I was trying to find my notes last summer, I was like, where are these notes? I know I didn't throw them away. And I found them. And finally, after going through several composition books, I was like, okay, what are these folded pages here? Because I ignored it at least 3 or 4 times. And then I take the tape off and there are all my notes. And I was like, I don't have to redo all my character notes because that would make me sad. So I put it aside in 2019 and therein ends the story again for 2 more years. So we get to the fall of 2021. My brain is working again. And I go to this book event for All's Well by Mona Awad. And she was talking about like her writing progress. She was talking about her writing process and, you know, what All's Well is about and what her next book is about. And like the week leading up to that event, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could bottle what she's doing and like drink it and like fix all my writing problems. And in true me fashion, after I watched the live stream, I was like, I'm going to try to do that. So I wrote down like kind of like what she was talking about, like her like kind of general aesthetic is. And so she has like this like underlay, like this dark fairy tale underlay with this overlay of like literary horror and surrealism, and it is gorgeous and I love it. But that's not my aesthetic. And so I was like, okay, well, what would my potion be? Because that wouldn't work for me, you know? It's good that I realized that. And so I started with what we have in common, which is like this underlay of like this dark fairy tale underlay. But I have more of like this overlay of like supernatural horror. And so I took that, and the first story that came to mind was Winter. And I was like, oh, not this again. Why does this keep coming up? Why does my friend keep bringing it up? You know, so I opened the document and I read over some of the first couple of pages and I was like, oh my gosh, this was so good. And then I remembered the last time my friend had brought it up, she's like, yeah, everything was so good until those guys showed up. And I was like, yeah, you know, but I fixed the problem with the first guy. But then I was like, there's still this other guy. And then my brain, now that it was functioning, was like, why don't you just take him out? Wouldn't that fix all of your problems? And I was like, I think it would. And so I made a note on my phone. I made a note saying to take this guy out if I ever rewrite the story. And I thought about it off and on for like the next couple of months, because this was like October 2021. I thought about it until about December. Then I decided I was going to work on this other project. And then I get to 2022 where I am like, okay, I can't work on this other project because I haven't finished anything in some time, in a few years. And I'm just like really rusty, and I need something that's less intimidating to get these writer gears like moving again. I need something like really fun. And so I literally picked the first project that came to mind, which was Ari's story. And so then now we get to the summer of 2022, and I'm setting Ari's story aside to do some backstory brainstorming things so that I don't wreck my story all over the place by like forcing things. And I wasn't wrecking, so I didn't want to wreck my story. Okay, because we've done that in the past. So I pick up Winter and I start working on it. And the first thing I do is I had 21,000 words I had written in 2019. So the first thing I did was I edited those 20-something thousand words, and I edited that character out. And after I edited him out, I kind of had this gut feeling that the story was starting to sag in some places. And I was like, okay, I obviously just can't take this character out. I have to replace him with somebody who works better for the story. So then I went back in and I edited this other character in. And I was like, this still isn't working for me energetically, because it just is how I am. So then I went back and I edited it again, and I changed the character. I swapped the character. So the first character I put in, I moved him to the background, and I mentioned him a couple times in the story because he's friends with this other guy, but I just felt like there was this guy named Josiah in the story. So I put this guy named Josiah in the story, and I edited him in, and I pushed the other guy to the back. Like, it was much better. Like, I could feel these saggy places like strengthening, but I needed to change one more thing about the character dynamics between him and the main character. Her name is Annalena. Her friends call her Lena, but I call her and her dad calls her Annalena. So I call her Annalena, and you know, I changed the relationship dynamics between Josiah and Annalena, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, the sun came out, all the light was shining down on the book, and I was like, finally, it's working. So I finished that edit, and then I go back and edit a few more scenes, like with her dad, just to kind of like fix some of that stuff. And so I edited it all the way through about 4 times, and then I edited parts of it for like a 5th time. And then I was like, I'm almost getting sick of reading this. And then I was done, and I was so excited. So I continued writing the story, and I was a little nervous because I'm like, again, I hadn't like finished anything since NaNoWriMo 2019, and I hadn't written anything I liked since spring, like April 2018. And so it had been some time. It had been a good 4 years since I've written anything I liked. It had been almost 3 years since I finished anything in general. And it had been a good 2 years since I'd done anything, really. So I did some dabbling in the fall of 2021, and I did a little bit of writing, and it felt really good. But I was just like messing around with the beginning of a couple of different stories, and nothing was working. So I was a little nervous about whether or not I could actually like finish the story, but I had complete confidence in my ability to finish the story. So I was right. I wrote the story. It took me 6 months to write what was essentially about 51,000 more words, which is a little slow for me, quite a bit slow for me, but it was okay because I'm like, I broke all my writing bones. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as it continues to progress. And then it did continue to progress. And at the end of February, I finished the first draft for Winter, and I was happy. I didn't like celebrate or jump around, but I was happy. I felt pleased on the inside. It felt like I had come home again after a long absence, and and you're weary, but you're happy to be home. That's what it felt like. So I was tired but happy. And so I set it aside, and I wasn't gonna edit it because I was like, who's gonna take this book? Okay. Like, it is so good. Like, it's so weird and creepy and dark and gross, and I just really, really love it. But I had no confidence, even though I had complete confidence in my ability to finish the story, I had no confidence in my ability to, like, convince anybody else to read the story. You know, even though I wrote a pitch for it when I picked it back up last summer, and I'm like, I love my pitch, you know, and now that I'm reading over the story, I do feel like my story lives up to its pitch, which is good. But anyway, I wasn't going to edit it, and then I was like, if I don't, I'm going to be sad. So I decided to edit it, and here we are. So, progress update. I'm also about halfway through this. I started editing it, oh my gosh, end of April. Because that's about the time where I was like, I need to do some more brainstorming on Ari's story. And so I picked this up to do some editing just so I can, keep that momentum going, keep those writing gears moving. And I was like, you know, you haven't edited anything in a while. This will be, if nothing else, you'll get those editing gears going again. And then if you read it and you like it, then just go ahead and query it. It might go somewhere. It might not. Sometimes I just have, you know, you have confidence issues. It doesn't matter. Basically, I already decided that I'm going to query it. I already finalized my query list, and I'm going to query whoever is open when the time comes. I already decided to do it. So it's like, just go ahead and do it. And if nothing else, I will get back in the habit of sending my work out there, and hopefully I will not fall apart if it doesn't go well. But it is, I think the book is objectively good. I have very good taste. It is very good, but again, I know what it's about, and I know all the things that are going on, and the ick factor is extremely high. And so that's kind of where the bulk of the kind of confidence issues are coming from, is I'm like, I don't know what other people's ick factor is. Like, if I saw that book, I would be like, oh my gosh, give me this disgusting thing. But some people are going to be like really off-put by it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I will talk about it. So anyway, pull this box out. It says, seal your secrets and stories with bookish elegance with this wax seal kit inspired by Dance of Thieves. Oh. And then the front says, choose your words carefully, even the words you think, because they become seeds and seeds become history. Oh. This box might be worth saving. Not that I want to keep a bunch of little boxes. Cute. I will add this to the other wax seal sets that I have. What is that? I don't know if you can see this. It's a book. It's a book with flowers around it. So, yeah, it's cute. Well, you know what? Let's keep it in its box. And then I will put this box with my other wax seal kits that I have. But anyway, yeah, that's what's going on with winter. I am, like I said, also halfway through. I'm a little more than halfway through, actually, at this point. I don't know. I think I'm on chapter, as of the film of this video, I think I'm on like chapter 26 or something out of 40 something. But they're short chapters in this story. So definitely going to have less chapters in Ari's story, I think. Because I think in Ari's story, I'm a little more than halfway through and I'm on chapter 19. But yeah, the editing is going really well. So I'm very happy with the story. And oh, I'm opening this box. So I'm opening this. Oh my gosh, it's Lord of the Rings. It's Mordor. It's the Lord of the Rings box. They said they're bringing a bit of the magic of Middle Earth to your table. Oh, it's a bowl. I will add this to my other Lord of the Rings and Hobbit bowls. I have other Middle Earth bowls. So I will add this to that stack. It's cute. Okay, it says Rohan on the inside. And yeah. The other one I have, that one also I think came from OwlCrate. That one is blue, so I will stack this one with that one. And I do use these, by the way. Also, it's just, sometimes you can't help yourself. Okay, so we have our book. I'm having a hard time getting it out. It's Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I have other books by Rebecca Ross. And we have our letter from the author. And a sneak peek of next month's June's theme is If the Fates Allow. And then we have our inserts. And they always have like the original cover and then what they did. I really like the original cover, but this one's fine. So that's the original cover. And then this is what OwlCrate did. So, oh wow, they went fancy with the edges this time. I don't have a finish date for Ari's story right now. I'm not like putting a date on it. It's kind of like whenever it gets done. Basically, I'm expecting it to be done by October. Just because I'm like, if I picked it up and I started working on it in March, and it also takes me 6 months, even though I didn't have the same head start that I had in winter. But I still think I can be done by October. Might be sooner because it is going really well. And now that my outline's done, I think I can speed up. Because I've had to think a lot, which is fine. I really have enjoyed the process. But I do think it will go a little bit faster now that I have a map. And I'm not pantsing everything. And I'm expecting winter to be done sometime in June, definitely by the end of June. And my writing friend that I'm planning on querying with, my writing friend, I don't know if I mentioned that or not. And she is participating in a query camp that is at the end of July. And so if nothing else, we want to both be ready to send queries out at the end of July or August or this fall or whatever. So I think I will definitely be done. And hopefully she will also be done in time for her query camp, and then we can query together in July or early August, something along those lines. So that's my deadline for editing, but I am expecting to be done in June because it is going really well. I'm spending a lot of time on it. You know, no TV for Crystal until we're done. But anyway, we have these, what are these, stenciled edges? Yeah, they look stenciled. There's a ribbon bookmark, and it's cute. It's kind of like a matte cover. So we have a signed book and an author's note in the book. So what is this? It's a note from this author, the author of Bonesmith, Nikki Paul Preto. Huh. Okay, well, I will read this note as well. And then we have this note that's bound in the book, which is nice. And then we have this end paper. And then we have all this going on. The book, which I'm a sucker for. I love very much. And we have artwork on the cover. Oh, nice. Kind of has dark academia vibes. Okay, so I'll just read you this bolded part right here so you have an idea of what this book is about. I do not remember. But it says, when two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell in a war between gods to seal their fate forever. And then the bottom, it says, Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. So here's our book. And this is the end of the video. And hopefully this will not be a nightmare to edit. And yeah, so like this video and drop a comment if you feel so moved, and subscribe if you feel so moved and you're not subscribed already. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.